Hi, I'm Gary, and welcome to another episode of Physical Format Rock and Roll, where we talk about all things rock and roll and classic metal. Unfortunately, this episode is a little bit different than what we would normally do um, because this is more of a memorial, as we are remembering Eddie Van Halen, who just passed away at the age of 65 from complications with a long hard-fought battle with cancer. I think most people knew that something was going on with Eddie. There hasn't been anything official out over the past few years, but we knew nothing was going on in the Van Halen camp. You would see pictures of him sometimes, but there was always like kind of rumors here and there about what was going on with him. And David Lee Roth himself had made some comments of saying that Eddie's got his own stuff going on, and he said, that's not my story to tell. Eddie Van Halen, very private person, notoriously private for the most part, and he just didn't want all that out there. He wanted to be in isolation with it as best as he could, but yet there were still pictures of him that we would see out there where he was, with an occasional fan or whatever, like on his way to wherever, to a doctor, sometimes it appeared to be. But yeah, this is a shock. At the same time, I guess it's not totally a surprise, but it is sad news. Eddie Van Halen, if people of my generation who first became aware of him, he was kind of like just a crazy breath of fresh air, or I imagine what maybe it was like when Jimi Hendrix came onto the scene in the 60s. I don't think he had the social impact that Jimi Hendrix had, but he definitely had the impact on the guitar. So when this I had just turned 13 when this album came out, Van Halen #1, and this is probably one of the most landmark or groundbreaking albums in rock and roll history. Especially in the past 40 years. Or 50 years, I guess, because of the style that was on here. The music itself was different. It was a lot more upbeat than a lot of things that were going on. It had an edge to it, but that guitar playing, Van Halen themselves, the whole band made an impact, okay? David Lee Roth was a huge part of this band too, but it was Eddie Van Halen's guitar playing that just set them apart. I remember hearing it. I remember, because back then, okay, there's no internet. It's not like you didn't even have MTV yet. And so you just kind of found out about things from friends or, whatever, that type thing. So by this time, even though I'm young, I'm already, I was a huge Kiss fan. I was an Aerosmith by this time, Queen, and Sabbath, and some things like that of the time. So when Van Halen burst onto the scene, it's one of those deals where I had a cousin in the big city type thing who, said, hey, we saw this record in the store, and he's like, do you have this one yet? And I'm like, no, who is it? He's like, you haven't heard of Van Halen yet? I'm like, no. And he's like, dude, you've got to hear it type thing. So I ended up buying a record, and my best friend came over, and, we listened to it, and, we're going, wow, this is really something, man. Listen to the guitar on this too. And then Eruption came on. And like everybody else, like every other, you know, teenage kid that was hearing that song, you know, come on. It was just, at that time, you know, we weren't aware of the whole finger tapping technique, right? You didn't see him. You hadn't seen Van Halen. You didn't know how he was doing that. I remember hearing that, hearing the guitar on there, hearing Eruption, and my friend and I were just like, what? You know, oh my God, how is he that fast? Because, you know, we're thinking he's going like this, just playing and picking. And we're thinking, it's impossible. How could he play that fast? We were just so amazed by it. Then later, you know, we found out that he had this technique that he used, which, you know, at that time, it's not like he was the first person to necessarily use that technique. Jeff Beck had done a little bit of it, you know, before that, but never to that extent. And at that time, I'd never heard of Jeff Beck. So, you know, the guitar playing on this was just crazy. This album was just so huge. The impact that it had, you know, if you were a little kid or a teenager or whatever during that time, is just, you know, I can't overstate how huge that was and how amazing his playing was. They had Van Halen 1, and then you went to Van Halen 2. Kind of more of the same, maybe not quite the, you know, the shock or as strong as what Van Halen's first album was. But then, what does Eddie do? Well, he's already done Eruption, right? You know, he's already blown everybody's mind with that. So he changes it up a little bit. Has a song on here called Spanish Fly, where it's an acoustic thing, where I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, he was taking a pencil and tapping on the strings as he was playing it to get this incredible sound. Now you all of a sudden you say, oh, Eddie's kind of diverse, isn't he? Yeah, he was. An amazing guitar player. You know, it's such a sad loss for him, for the world, with him being gone, for the musical world. I mean, you know, just thank goodness that we have the music from him that we did, and that he had the fame and celebrity. Next up was Women and Children First. What a barn burner, okay? More, you know, just adding to the legacy, you know, with this album. More guitar, crazy histrionics on this thing. It's just, this is such a good album right here. This is probably my favorite Van Halen album. You know, this is so, you know, his guitar on a lot of these songs. He also has some cool acoustic stuff on this too, and you know, some change of pace styles on here. And his guitar sounds heavy as hell on this album. This is such a great album. By this time, Eddie's famous. You know, obviously he's on all the guitar magazines now. People are, you know, into Eddie. Eddie's the greatest, you know. I mean, he's the poster boy at the moment. Everybody's talking about him. He becomes a bit of a celebrity, marries Valerie Bertinelli. You know, the bad boy rock star versus the sweetheart girl from One Day at a Time. So just when they're thinking, you know, well, he's going to mellow out and, you know, maybe not quite be because he's not going to be the wild guy that he was, because Van Halen was kind of the party band for a while. The thing about Van Halen was they pretty much set the blueprint for every band in the 80s to kind of follow. The whole hair metal term, I don't like that, but all those kind of bands were just basically trying to copy 1980 Van Halen, okay? None of them could. They were all, the singers were trying to emulate the whole style of David Lee Roth, the whole party guy and stuff, and all the guitar players, they wanted to be the next Eddie Van Halen. Unfortunately, that actually led to a lot of bad music, because you just had these songs where all they did was like, they had these kind of crap songs that just built up to a 90-mile-an-hour guitar song. And that kind of got old fast. Anyway, back to Van Halen, to Eddie. Marries Valerie Bertinelli. Does he slow down? Does he make something light? No. Fair Warning comes out. Once again, like Women and Children First, the guitar tone on this album and that album, probably it's the heaviest things they've done. Eddie's guitar playing on Women and Children First and Fair Warning is just, it's just dark and heavy. It's thick sounding. I mean, this thing has Mean Streets and Sinner's Swing on it. Yeah, you don't get any better than that, man. Those are just some kick-ass songs. Great crunchy guitar. Those two albums, if I would recommend a couple albums to start out with Van Halen, I mean, I guess it would be Women and Children First and Fair Warning. Maybe the first one, I don't know. I guess with the first one, I've heard it so much that I rarely need to listen to it. But I do know that it was amazingly groundbreaking, and I understand that. Coming up next, Diver Down. Okay, not near as hard rocking as the previous two, but still a pretty good album. There's a lot of covers on this, but it's Eddie's take on that. Now, some of these songs you might, think, well, I'm not that crazy about them, but their version of Dancing in the Streets, which is a song, you think, do they really need to do it? But then you listen to that guitar that he did on there, Eddie's take on it. I don't know. That's just kind of genius, the way he changes it. They do Where Have All the Good Times Gone by the Kinks. Once again, they do another Kinks song, right? Great job of that. The big hit off of this, they do a remake of Pretty Woman. That whole Intruder instrumental, the way that goes, that's just Eddie just making noise. And it sounds so cool because it just goes right from that right into Pretty Woman. And you get his take on that. And it's also great. Eddie had a way of taking, I know he complained because he didn't like all the cover songs on here. But man, what a good job of it he did. And the other songs on here that are not cover songs are all good songs. This is a pretty well underrated Van Halen album, I think. Hang 'em High is really good. Little guitars. The Full Bug. Now there you go. Now there's a rocking song. It ends it. That's pretty cool. Of course, they've got their jokey version of Happy Trails on here, which is just fun. I mean, that was just Van Halen just goofing around. They, like I said, they were the party band, but they were great musicians too. They had Eddie, so it didn't matter how much they goofed off, man. They had Eddie Van Halen to play for them. And then, of course, their big seller after that was 1984, where now Eddie had already kind of messed around with a little bit of keyboards on here and on Fair Warning, but he used them more on this. This is when you realize, oh, he can play keyboards too. Sure he can. And he does a pretty good job. They had the mega hit with Jump. Not necessarily my favorite Van Halen song, but nevertheless, big hit, right? People loved it. Their sound was starting to change a little bit on this one. And then he went on to change it more once Sammy Hagar joined the band. I'm not as much of the fan of that version of it. These albums that I just showed you, those first 6 Van Halen albums, that's where Eddie became the legend, that he is. The rest of it, that was just icing. That was just icing on the cake. They did have some good stuff on there, but he proved that he could change his style. He changed the sound of his guitar, his tone. He wrote more commercial style music instead of, he didn't do anything too heavy that much. They finally ended up toward the end there doing some more heavy stuff, but just, shows the talent that he had. He could do a different style of music. It appealed to an even wider range of people. So, who am I to say? But like I said, that's my Van Halen. That's when I want to listen to Eddie's great, kick-ass, groundbreaking guitar work. It's on those albums that I just showed you. On this tour, right here on the Diver Down tour, that is when I first saw Van Halen. There's my ticket stub. It's from 1982. It's the second concert I ever saw. And it was great. Still one of the best concerts I've ever seen. That was Van Halen in their prime, man. That, that time period right there, that, don't fool yourself. That's when they were the best. Still proving themselves a little bit. Still just out there just kicking ass and having fun. And that's what it was. I mean, the show that they put on was just amazing. I loved it. I can still remember that. They opened up with Romeo Delight. David Lee Roth forgot some of the words. Didn't matter. Boom. They were just kicking it, right from the get-go. And then, we get a kind of boring drum solo. Later on, we get a bass solo. You're thinking, all right, when's Eddie get his solo, man? Well, it wasn't until quite late in the show. There he goes, man. Eddie does this crazy guitar solo where he's doing parts of Eruption. What did he do? He did parts of little guitars. I don't know. I remember him throwing other things in there. But he didn't just do Eruption. He added all kinds of stuff in there. I can remember him. He had the, big wall of amps, and he would run back, jump up, kick them, and they would sway like that, back and forth. He'd come back, he'd play some more, he'd go back, boom, kick them again. It was like you had been waiting for it. You had been waiting for like 3/4 of that show for Eddie to just get up there and just let loose. And he did. Amazing. Just amazing. He was, such a groundbreaking guitar player. I really can't overstate that. I know I said it 50 million times, but it's the truth. And, it's a darn shame that he will not be with us anymore. Only 65. I mean, nowadays, that's not that old. People expect to live longer than that, and I'm sure he had more music in him. I don't know, though. Probably down the road there'll probably be more things coming out that he's probably recorded that we don't know about. But it's a shame, and I'm sure that a lot of you out there are probably feeling the same way. And if you want to, share any of your memories or anything in the comments, that'd be great. And if anybody would like to subscribe to that channel, I'd love it. But rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen, and thank you for all the music, for all the years. I'm Gary. I'll talk to you later.